Hello. This video is very much of the moment, and usually the title has come partway through thinking about creating this video. It is all an inside job. But whilst I was thinking about this video, up came a notification for Julia's channel Simplicity Revealed, and she's talking about what is shadow work? Well, that is an inside job, and she mentioned a interesting phrase in that video, having self-awareness, HSA. It's also externally, I think it's more often expressed as HSE, Health and Safety Executive, but it's Health and Safety Advisory. But then when you internalize that, it is having self-awareness. Think of it like a game, a bit like Escape from a Prisoner of War camp, because we are all prisoners of our own device. Little reminder to a video I listened to earlier, Square Peg Divergent, and she did a bit of a breakdown on Hotel California and what's revealed in that, talking about downloads and things. So this is all coming off the top of the head, as it were. Where do I want to go with this? Because I can go off on so many tangents. First off, it's just an observation. The last video, I tried to show common ground across what various channels are putting forward, and I mentioned 3 in the description, and oh boy, it's saddening in a way to me that some of you are focusing on the differences and not the commonality. What do I mean by this? Well, when you look at the structure and pattern of things, there are things that become very apparent. So a word like chorus, Jesus, thalamus, there's more. Like I say, this is off the top of my head. The common denominator, Janus is another one, the two-headed or two-faced God. Paul on What the Flock TV has done a lot of videos talking about that, very much worth seeing. But the common denominator there is us. If you think of the shape of a letter U, it's like a cradle or a cup that you can fill up or you can empty. And then the S is the spirit. This is all about us on an individual level. It's implied that it is us, and it is all an inside job. I don't think I even need to point to you anything in the external world that's what's presented, and the whole thing with corruption. But if you put yourself in the shoes of the ones that would have started this, the ones that would have retained certain knowledge, kept it to themselves, so they've basically created a lie, and a lie has to be continuously fed. So it's like a sort of illusory Wizard of Oz, looks terrifying, but it has no substance behind it except the energy that you give it. Now, a perfect example is, look at anything in the external. You import that, you take it inside yourself through the eyes and the ears where it's processed. So it's something going on inside you. You take in this information, regardless of what it is, whether it's true or not, whether it's CGI or whatever. You're recording it, you're taking it in through the eyes and through the ears, through the senses. Your interaction, notice there's the word in again, with this external. And then it may implant particular feelings inside you. But when you are having self-awareness, you're processing, and it changes, you change the polarity on it. Instead of importing it as something negative, you're creating from within inside yourself, you're transmuting it, and then you're pushing it back out, you're radiating it outwards. Let me just switch here to a daily, a sort of everyday analogy. Imagine I was the very first one to do something. So you want a bed, you want a table, you want a chair, functional things to be inside a building. So I'm going to look at human physiology and take the average height to create a chair or a table or a bed or whatever it happens to be. And I've said before that everything in this external world, its basis is upon human physiology, whether it be architecture of any kind. So I'd like now to go in, let's paint a picture. Now imagine, if you will, you found your earthing plane, your heart center on which you are now building. So there's your one chamber. Now imagine from that you have a lighthouse that goes up to the mind's eyes, because you're coming from the heart space and you're projecting out. You're taking in recording through the two physical eyes, but you're projecting out from the mind's eye in a sort of, what do you call it, a sort of unseen metaphysical energetic interaction with the external through the ether. The form of water beyond the gaseous state that is everything and everywhere, and the frequency that holds everything together. So you have this lighthouse, so that's your top chamber. You've got the heart. Now you have something else, and again it's that word again. You have instinct, you have intuition. That's the two senses that don't work externally like the other five senses, they work internally. So that's your lower chamber. Now think of the Great Pyramid of Giza. I've said before that the white casing stones are the sort of equivalent of the enamel of the teeth. The embodiment of that structure represents the same internal structure of these three chambers within inside us. Now, with that Great Pyramid of Giza, it is said that something like the control panel or whatever was taken out, was stolen from it, so it doesn't function. It's a bit like what's being played out in this reality is to take something out so we can't function, that being it, the sort of firewalling off that spiritual connection, so you're not connected between heart and your lighthouse, as it were, your king's chamber. So I'd like now to turn to the subject of Janus. Now the easiest way I can probably explain this, I don't need to go to the place apart from to experience it, but I can just take what is shown on the internet, which I can't actually verify unless I actually went to the place, and that is the Sistine Chapel. And there's a painting on the ceiling, very famous painting by Michelangelo, which sounds like a reverse of Angel Michael, and it shows this anthropomorphized metaphysical message. You've got the Adam who's laid back, just being, with a sort of an outstretched hand. Then you have this thing that looks very much like the pineal gland, and an anthropomorphization of the creative power within that pineal gland with an outstretched hand. But notice, if you zoom in, the hands are not touching. It is telling you to look up in here, because it's all an inside job. It's not looking up at a ceiling. This is where the problem occurs, where things are anthropomorphized, and you'll get people there worship and pray to these depictions, these idols. They're only representations. This is something Ken Wheeler touched on or talked about in a very recent video on Theora Apotheosis channel as well. But there is nothing between man and God. That's all it's saying. But internalize it. The pineal gland, it's within you. Like I said, look for the common denominator. Now let's look at that word. Denominator. Well, in the Bible, in Genesis, it says everything was created, and then God says to Adam, you name it. So you nominate something and you give it a label. And this, unfortunately, is where things go horribly wrong, because it is all an inside job. Deliberate title to this video. So let's go over the title of the video and I'll explain what I mean. It, so it's I and T, it's your informed technology. So your toroidal field, your aura that is around you, because you're basically like a Russian doll. The physical part is the smallest bit in the middle, and then you've got your etheric body and your astral body and your eye organisation. It actually goes in reverse in the metaphysical, the opposite of this material realm. You are greater than your physical self. The mind can expand way beyond its physical dimensions. That's pretty obvious if you experience dreams or even daydreaming or using your imagination. Right, so before I lose my train of thought, bring it back to centre again. Where did I get to? See, it's gone, but it will come back. So you're creating this internal structure. It is all an inside job. Now, I'm not saying that the Great Pyramid of Giza as a functional machine, it may or may not work. I feel it won't work because it is missing those casing blocks, which I feel also act as an insulation. But as I've said on the last sort of few videos about water and how it has the 4 states, and it is actually us, the core of us, the chorus, when you're singing from the same song sheet. This is actually what changes the world. It is all an inside job. It is all going on within. How you feel about something, where do you feel it? When you're presented with something, how does it make you feel? Where is it happening? It's all going on. You feel the sensations inside yourself. But we have this interaction with everything. I mean, how amazing to have this thought wave. So Julia puts up a video. I'm the first viewer. And I start watching 44 seconds in. It's like a 144 reference I've got yet again. How does that work? I don't know. The only explanation I can give you, and I have to nominate it, so I have to give it a label. So I'm going to call it a simulation, a holosphere, because of the amazing way it works that seems to go beyond the human mind. How could anybody have pre-planned that with a mortal mind, for example? Is it just seek and ye shall find? It's something external. I can't say I'm actually looking for it, but I acknowledge, I treat it like a metaphysical thumbs up. It's like, keep going, you're on the right path. The 144 adds up to 9, which is a number of completion, for example. So going back to Anton Bruckner, he's been a huge teacher of a message, as it were, through his story, because it became apparent, and I find him very fascinating. You have Bruckner the man, who's very set in his ways, and you have Bruckner the artist, who is very misunderstood in his own time and creating something. And there's a marked distinction between the two. And I take from that also, and also the common denominator thing, I can highlight and mention various channels that probably aren't on agreement on everything, but I'm looking for the common ground. So, yeah, I'll be honest, I was disappointed with some of the reactions, losing a few subscribers. That's normal anyway. Every time I put a video up, I seem to lose a subscriber, whether it's YouTube. But it's another reason why I mentioned James' True channel, because he comes across as controversial. Controversial is good because it gets you thinking. If you're watching or listening to something and you're being triggered by it, that's the time to go in and, why am I being triggered by this? They're just words that have been said, but look how words obviously have power if it's affecting you in either a positive or a negative way. Yes, thoughts come back now. Janus. I can't think of any living creature that has eyes at the back of the head and the front of the head. Certainly there are spiders and things that have multiple eyes, but they all face in the same direction. So is it likely that there was ever a living creature with a face on the front and a face on the back? I feel what you've got there, and it is a doorway, it is a gatekeeper. What is being expressed there is divine masculine and divine feminine. The divine masculine, which is the husband that is going out into the world, the sort of hunter, the one that is exploring, the sort of male aspect, is the forward-facing face. Now, the face at the back, a lot with these Janus depictions, it's a female face. Some of them later on, it's changed to a male face, but I feel that is more to do with the patriarch belief system. So they've taken the female out of the equation, or hidden it, reversed it, you could say. But take it as being the divine feminine. It's not looking backwards, it's looking within. The divine feminine is your subconscious. It's said to be 90% of the brain. It's the greater area. It's a huge storage of whatever the five senses are taking in and recording. That is all being stored in the subconscious. And it is like the dutiful wife. It's expressed as Mary the Virgin as well. It's nothing to do with the external world. This is just allegory to explain things. So the divine feminine is like the ever-loving, beautiful wife. So whatever is recorded and the feelings from what is being taken in is creating feeling. The Virgin is in the sense that it makes no distinction between good or bad. So whatever you feel, it will serve more of. It's like, okay, if you've got the feeling of hatred, it will give you more feeling of hatred and anger and so on. So you just change the polarity. So if you are feeling more positive and putting more positive, you're transmuting what you see. You're seeing it as reflections that are just little reminders of things. It's like, I don't like the way that person is acting over there, but what's it telling me? It's telling me, well, don't act like that. You can see that it's not a good thing, depending on what it is. Of course, you're making a judgment as well. Just observe it and then weigh it up inside. Is that the way to behave? And you get the answer. It is all with an internal process. Again, the external material world has given you processed food. You ingest, you digest, and you process it inside, internally. Likewise with thoughts, scripts that are presented to you. You take them in and you process them, you weigh them up inside. There's no difference, it's just the modality whether it's coming as like air or is it coming like water, is it coming as an external script, and then it has the process and it's weighed up inside oneself. So it is all an inside job. Think of it in like a game, where it is like I think I might have said this already on video. I apologise, because it is all just off the top of the head, random thoughts as they come. Think of the inner child, the one that is sort of doesn't like change, that is scared of everything, and will try and find the easy option route. Every time that tries to make a move, it's a shadow. And every time it moves, you've got this light beam that's going on inside yourself. You are the light of the world, in other words. So you're casting a light, and there's that shadow, and every time it tries to make a move, it can't, because it's got to step into the light. It's got nowhere to go. It can only be brought back in and embraced and accepted for what it is. It's trying to guide you. It's a fight or flight intuition that is natural. But it mustn't be allowed. Again, this is something the external world is very good at portraying. It's like dominion over the animals. So you train a dog, you try and train a cat to use a litter tray or something. You're training it. So likewise, this internal inner child, it has to grow, no longer be a child as such, in one sense, that you have to nurse it and give it love and teach it that way. Teach it with kindness. Don't beat yourself up. This reality is designed in such a way that it is basically the ultimate computer game. So the informed technology, your informed field, the technology. Again, it's a label, but this is a technology, a design, these human bodies. But it's a biological technology, not a circuit board technology like a computer. But if I say information technology, most of you will straight away have been trained to have that narrow sort of field of think computers and devices and things straight away. But again, the devices themselves are based on human physiology again. That dormant DNA, think of it like with a cell phone, a mobile phone. The circuits in that phone have not changed one bit, but when you download an app, that device can now do new functions. It's the same with the spiritual downloads. You could think of yourself as being your physical self, and what the external senses and the range that they're in are convincing you that this is real, to such a degree that it is very, very convincing. But imagine that you're the controller of that character, the avatar, as it were, in this reality. And it becomes a fun game. See, if I go back to sort of like subscriber numbers, I can look at that in two ways. I can look at it with a negative polarity, I've lost subscribers, and that sort of reaction. Or I can say, okay, the message is not for everybody, but out of it also comes that maybe it's the way I explained it poorly. It's not the other, and obviously we've all got our own ideas and things. We've internalized things, we've heard things, we've weighed things up and come to conclusions. But I go back to not sitting in judgment, because am I totally infallible? No, not by any stage. Some people think I'm intelligent. what would you base that on? Are you thinking that I've read hundreds and hundreds of books? I've certainly put in a few hours with audio books, but I'm not really one for reading books. Some things will really get my attention, like personally it's Anton Bruckner. I sort of identify it. So I also see there's a slight parallel there. It's in Bruckner's story, he stumbled onto a battlefield between this new German music and the more traditional, quite fierce rival camps came to punch-ups and things, a bit like rival football supporters today. So the story goes anyway. But so by linking channels and trying to show the commonality, it's like backfired in a way, because it's, I'm sorry if it's created a little bit of division. That was not the intention at all. I'm hoping that you'll see past the personalities and look at the information. Why? That's surely the most important thing. I mean, do you watch a video just to be entertained from any particular channel, or are you seeking information that is going to benefit you? It may be just one thing they say on whatever channel. It's like, something clicks inside you. Again, it's inside you. It is all an inside job after all. But in this realm where there seems to be duality, an inside job is often thought of as being something corrupt, but it's going to have its mirrored opposites as well. This reality, as I've said before, is like a crazy house. You have all sorts of mirrors. Some are good reflections, some are true reflections. They're looking back at you, so they're on a sort of opposite linear polarity, as it were. Some of them are vastly distorted. It's when you get transfixed by those mirrors and think what's been reflected back is you. It's just, doesn't matter what's being shown in the mirror, but it's, the true sight is in the feeling. It's how you feel about things and whether you are able to weigh them up. Have you got a good set of scales? So, switching back again to the whole Janus thing, often Janus is depicted with like two horns. So I would say that's representing Aries, that's pushing forwards, the ram that's wanting to go outward and wanted to expand. And it's balanced with the stored records, basically Akashic records, you could say, in the subconscious, which is the divine feminine, which will just keep feeding up, will keep feeding more and supplying more. It's an abundant supply, and it's all within you. It's just whether you can get that alchemical marriage and bring the two in unison, so you become a core us. That sort of dielectric hourglass, because it is ours, it's all ours, it never wasn't, it's just this external reality, and the hijack of it has taken it away. It's part of this experience to sort of overcome all these things. But if you can internalize things and unlock that inside yourself, the keys are inside yourself. You are your own gatekeeper. If you shut the gates and lock them and you won't allow yourself, oh, I don't like this channel because of this or because of that, you may actually be doing yourself a disservice. So I'm going to continue to recommend channels where I feel there are things worth sharing, but I'm certainly not going to cast negative aspersions on any other channel, because I feel that's not coming from the heart. It's a very fine line. Okay, if you're going to, say, construct a critique of another channel's video, if you're saying, well, I think this person's information is wrong, and then you can demonstrate why you think it is, surely that's better. But when it comes to sort of ridicule, childish ridicule, it's like nothing constructive said. I don't see the point of it. If anything, I start questioning, did I do the right thing recommending another channel? I'm not mentioning any names, but some of you know what I'm referring to from that, from what you've seen. But it comes down to everything inside you, how you weigh things up and what you want to believe or not believe about anything. But in some ways you could say it's selfish, but you are looking for true self. So if I was the one, as it were, that was behind the Wizard of Oz, I would make it as difficult as possible, and I would be mixing and matching lies and truth, because I'd want to lure you in with enough truth so you think, oh yeah, this is right. But then I will deliberately add in some other things to mislead and keep this foggy veil over everything. But you can bring about the Christ all clarity within inside yourself simply by aligning those three chambers, your internal Great Pyramid internal chambers, because that is just another example of human physiology expressed in a far more solid form. But it's all expressions, it's all anthropomorphized, it's all architecture. I can't even think of a word for it, but I think you get the picture. Everything external is a reflection of you. There's nothing that was made that was not first made. So tables and chairs, they're all designed around the human physiology. Everything seems to be designed around the human physiology. This reality seems to be designed around it in many ways. So yeah, wow, we've gone up to 32 minutes. So hopefully that's given you a little bit more. But shadow work, facing yourself. So again, I'm going to say go to Simplicity Revealed, go to, start with Simplicity Revealed. There's another channel, and Tom Campbell as well. It's all about doing the inner work, so you can weigh these things up inside, find how you can transmute what's being offered, what's being reflected to you, and what is it going to benefit you, because everything actually is a wonder. If you had personally, if I knew I'd only got 30 minutes to live, I'd be stopping this video straight away. I'd be putting my shoes on, I'd be getting out there, and I'd be going and hugging a tree, and I'd just be looking at nature and thinking, if this is the last 30 minutes I've got, I'm going to really enjoy it, and I'm going to go and see the wonder of nature, and I'm going to feel it, because that's what I want to go out with. But if you can then transmute that feeling, and you haven't got half an hour, but if you're living as if that is all you've got, imagine how that feels inside, how suddenly everything changes, and you start seeing, this is the duality of this world. Often people, a perfect example of this is Wilko Johnson. When he was told that he had 10 months to live, he came out and he's now looking at the world in a totally new way, and it's like, wow, everything is now suddenly amazing. The paradox of that, because this reality is duality, is contrasts, it is a series of paradoxes, but it's all about unifying, bringing it back into one. The 11-11 makes 4. Pulling yourself together, internalize everything. It really is all an inside job. Well, we've gone up even further now because I've talked even longer. So I hope that brings some clarity. So love to you all, and just weigh things up. Simplicity Revealed channel playlists, language lessons of the heart. Well worth doing. If you haven't already even looked into that, I'd recommend just giving it a try at least. You've got nothing to lose and everything to gain. There is abundance to find. It is all within your subconscious. It is all within the heart Seek the kingdom within and all will be given to you is the simplest instruction there is. Love to you all.